Good evening, everybody. Scott Brown here. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Rabbits, my vlog dedicated to helping you become the leader you have always wished you had worked for. So in social science, there is an experiment, a famous experiment that is played out many times, started back in the 50s, but I think it's incredibly important to talk about tonight. There's something called the marshmallow experiment. Here's how it works. Researchers go into a room, have a few children in there, usually like 4, 5, 6 years old, a couple, 2 or 3 of them sitting at a table in a chair, and in front of them on a plate is a marshmallow. One of the nice, big, fluffy, white marshmallows. And the researcher says, I have to leave the room for a few minutes. However, I'm going to trust you with this marshmallow. If you can resist eating this marshmallow for 2 minutes, when I come back, I'm going to give you a second marshmallow. And the researcher leaves the room and leaves the 3 children sitting there, and they film what happens. And you can see these children just seething, seeing this marshmallow right in front of them. It's killing them not to eat the marshmallow. Some of them will pick it up and sniff it and turn it around and play with it on the plate. And the more they pay attention to the marshmallow, the more likely they are to eat the marshmallow. The ones that resist the marshmallow are the ones that focus on that long-term goal of a second marshmallow, so they take their attention off of this one marshmallow, knowing that they can get a second marshmallow down the road if they're able to resist this. I think it's an incredibly powerful lesson when it comes to leadership. Leaders set long-term goals. They have a goal where they're trying to take an organization, a team, an individual. They have a long-term focus of where they're trying to go. In order to get there, they know that they need to give up these short-term, shiny objects that pop up as a possibility. That you go, ooh, look, that thing that I've always wanted. And you go and you grab that thing, even though you know that you're giving up a long-term goal. When leaders do that, they lose credibility, they lose trust. Those working for them, those working with them, those that have been following them know that they are just as likely to be sacrificed if some other short-term goal pops up that's shiny enough. They know that they no longer have the ability to last in the long term. They are expendable. They're no longer part of the social contract that's been expired. This played out for everyone to see today, and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes down the road. But I think there's going to be a long-term consequence for that lack of trust that was created today when a shiny object popped up and a leader said, I want this thing, and forgot about everyone else that was following them and just went after this one thing. Ohio State University today won the Big Ten championship. They beat Northwestern 22-10, I think it was. It was a good game. It wasn't a great game. It was an okay game. Ohio State certainly showed that they had flaws, but they ended up winning in the end. The problem isn't that they won the game. The problem is that they were even in the game in the first place. So back when the Big Ten first decided they were going to play this season, they said in order to qualify for the Big Ten championship game, you must have played 6 games. Well, going into the last week of the season, last week, Ohio State had played 5 games. They had had games called off and canceled because of COVID in a couple of different places. I know their Maryland game was called off, there was something else, and then Michigan was canceled. So they had only played 5 games. That put the leaders of the Big Ten in a quandary. Do we stick true to our credibility of saying, here are the rules, we're going to follow the rules, even if it's inconvenient for us? Even if we want that marshmallow, we're going to wait. We're going to bypass grabbing that one lucrative marshmallow now in order to ensure that down the road, everyone is still on board and we're leading them towards a place that we want to go. That our long-term success matters more than our short-term game. Unfortunately, what the Big Ten did is they said, we know that Ohio State has a really good chance of making the college football playoff this year. They're a really good team. In order to do that, we think their chances are better if they play in the Big Ten championship game. We're going to change the rule You no longer have to play 6 games, you only have to have played 5 games. Because OSU had played 5 games, won all 5 games, they were able to play today against Northwestern. The problem stems from this. Now all the other Big Ten teams, which ironically there's more than 10 of them, are watching this saying, well, when the rule wasn't convenient for you, Big Ten, you decided that you were going to get rid of that rule in order to grab this shiny object and be able to bank on that payday of hoping that Ohio State qualifies for the Bowl Championship Series, for the playoffs. But there was nothing saying that they couldn't have gotten into that playoff either way. Maybe they were going to still get in as a 5-win team, but if they hadn't played in their championship game, there's a chance that they would have been overlooked because they didn't make the championship game. But now you have all these other teams, like Indiana, who lost to Ohio State a couple of weeks ago, who are now, I think, 7-1, which really should have been the representative because they had played their mandatory 6 games, but they got bounced because Ohio State is a bigger draw, a bigger name, and has a bigger payday. The Big Ten chose money, chose to grab that marshmallow and eat that marshmallow now, hoping that that was going to satisfy down the road, no one was going to care about it. We as leaders are placed in that position all of the time. We know that when we have set a rule, when we've set a standard, it might be incredibly inconvenient for us as leaders to be able to stick to that standard. But if we don't, we lose our credibility, we lose the trust of our team, we lose face. There's nothing authentic about us anymore at all. So what happens a year from now when one of those other Big Ten teams breaks a rule and the Big Ten says, you've broken a rule, here's your penalty, and that team has to say, that school has to then say, well, wait a minute, when the rules weren't convenient for you, you were able to change the rules. So why now am I held to a rule that clearly you're allowed to change? This, I think, is a Pandora's box that the Big Ten has opened because they've allowed themselves to be seduced by a short-term gain, a short-term win, even though it meant sacrificing long-term credibility. I'm not a Big Ten fan. I could care less if Ohio State goes to the national championship, who they play. I could care less. My team's long gone. Doesn't matter. My problem, though, is this. The NCAA and the Big Ten have said the rules only matter in as far as it's beneficial to us as the leader. When it's no longer beneficial to us, then we're going to change the rule so it benefits us. That's not the stance of a leader. That's the stance of an executive, of a boss. And nobody wants to be bossed around. That's not leadership. That's where we get this convoluted relationship between us and others when we're leading if we don't stay true to what we've said is true. What would happen to those 3, 4, 5 children that are sitting in a room with a marshmallow in front of them if now that child has eaten a marshmallow and the other child has shunned away from that one marshmallow in hopes of getting 2 because that was the promise. If you don't eat this one now, I'll give you 2 later. When the researcher comes back in, they say, I was just kidding. That one marshmallow is really all that matters anyway. Those children now are going to remember not to trust that person because they obviously are incredible. So I think it's important today to think about how our choices, when we decide to no longer hold true to our word and allow ourselves to be seduced by short-term gain, but giving up long-term results, all of a sudden we've given up our role as a leader. And I'm hoping that all of you will see that maybe, just maybe, while it's painful and difficult, wait for those 2 marshmallows because it's going to be much more rewarding to ensure that your entire tribe is still moving behind you instead of just the one person, the one team that got the marshmallow. Because all of a sudden in the Big Ten, it now looks like it's Ohio State, one set of rules, everyone else, some other set of rules. If you as a leader set this up, you are doomed for failure. Until tomorrow, I want you to think about when maybe you have been seduced by short-term gain and given up long-term hope. Until tomorrow, my friends, have a wonderful night. I will see you on the flip side. Toast on, my friends, and have a great evening.